Hi everyone, in today's video we're going to talk about something really important, and that is transitions. I wanted to showcase a couple different projects and discuss my methodology about how I went about creating the sounds and the orchestration for those transition points. All these projects are very different. The first one is a drama, the second one is a comedy, and the last one is a suspense film. So obviously each transition idea is different because each film is different, but they all serve the same purpose, which is to help us get from one idea in the story to the next idea. And so with that said, let's jump on in.
Man, I can just feel myself getting scoliosis.
I don't think you know how scoliosis works.
Please don't make me look it up. You already made me do research once tonight, and I felt really weird looking at photos of Julie Andrews in the bathroom.
So, this is a very small little transition. There's a little joke that happens before, and then we cut to the next scene. So I wanted something that was really simple. It had a lot of emotion. Orchestration-wise, it's piano and some pads. In regards to the sounds, I have a free VST from Labs. It's the felt piano. I used the East-West piano gold, and then I put a arpeggiator on that. The analog strings plug-in by Output, and that's just this guy right here, the space between, which I'll play through some of these. A Labs Arco strings, I just kind of grabbed the MIDI data and slid it down. And then the OB6 with some stuff. If you notice up here, I had to do some time signature madness to get this to line up right, but it lands on the hit as soon as she hits the pillow. Super simple, right? Very, very simple. I've got the piano playing this line here. I'll pull up the MIDI data for that. It's just playing broken chords, essentially. It starts in the 4. Goes to the 1 with the 3 in the bass. Repeats the same pattern. And then I end on the root. Piano sequence. It's kind of a different kind of arpeggiated line. I had the sustain and the release all quick in this, so it was kind of more of an arpeggiated sound. Together it sounds pretty cool. It's just like a nice little thing hidden in the background there. In regards to the pads, I've got analog strings. Super simple little phrase there. And then I have the Labs string swell ensemble. It's a free VST as well, with spaces between as well. I'll put this little harp in it too. So like I said, these are all just more or less just textures. And the last thing that I had is the OB6. Is the only analog instrument in this. And it's just pretty much mirroring the same harmony. It's D to A with the C sharp. And all together. So very simple orchestration. Now, if we pull back in the audio, remember that
You already made me do research once tonight, and I felt really weird looking at photos of Julie Andrews in the bathroom.
so you notice how it just helps us land into that scene, right? So there's this kind of intimate moment, and then we go to the next section. So that's its goal. This goal was to establish this scene, make this little intimate moment, and then we transition to the next scene. So this piece is obviously way different than the first one. This one is very whimsical, light, orchestral. There's some really cool stuff happening in here. I actually referenced the fight song for this college, this fake college in this film that this professor is at. And yeah, I repurposed it for this transition. So we're going to watch this. We're going to dissect this. Know also that this does not have the animation for it, so you're just going to see a black screen. That kind of happens a lot in projects like this, where you'll have inserts, essentially is what they're called, where it's not done, but they need to, obviously work on other things while it's working on. So they put the insert in for the timing to know how long it's going to be, and then from there they will punch it in at the very end, essentially, with the placeholder. This also has just set sound, location sound, and it also has no color grade, so it looks pretty rough, but obviously this is just working for something to work off of. So anyway, so this character, Walter, who's very uptight, very type A, has this conversation with this guy. Turns out that they have something in common. They both like this candy bar. And so we transition from him trying to get to the library. So let's give it a listen now with that in context so you can see what's going on. Cool. So what's going on here instrumentation wise? I have the woodwinds playing in with Spitfire library, the Albion library. It's a really nice library with a lot of good stuff in it. I have it broken into two parts. I have the low part and the high part. It's really simple. It's just playing the chords. So we're in D major. And then we have that. And then we have the end of the cue. There's a little timpani roll. So, other thing we have is this woodwind line as well. It's just the Albion One shorts. And it's also played and compassed with the Labs Pizzicato strings. Pizzicato ensemble, excuse me. Space. So the melody goes, that's the melody, but I had a space there for the drum roll, which I'm going to show next. And sidebar, this is before I had a lot of Spitfire audio software, so I only had the Albion stuff, and I used a lot of the free stuff from the labs in conjunction with East West and some other stuff that I had. So obviously now, if I did this now, I would have used, more than likely have used the chamber strings, which are probably my favorite VST for strings outside of audio modeling for solo stuff. I actually did a video on that. You can check that out at some point if you want to. It's in the description. This just goes to show you that, you don't have to have 1,000 VSTs. You can use a lot of stuff for free, and it sounds great. Obviously, it takes a little bit of work, but it sounds good. So finally, I have this another Albion One. This the brass, I believe. Yep, it's French horns. It's essentially mirroring the same thing as the woodwinds. Other sidebar, be sure to label your stuff. Notice I didn't label anything in here. I should have labeled it. I was running like a man on fire with this one, though. I had 8 different episodes, and I only had like a couple weeks to do it, so I literally was just blazing. I also have these timpani rolls. Those are some east-west ones. Yeah, so as soon as we go into this frame right here, we have beep ba da ba da space, and then we go into this drum roll. And I'm going to pull in the audio. It's rough audio, but I want you to hear what's going on. As soon as we cut to this frame of this gentleman walking, that's when we have the space. Harmonically, there's no melody. It's just the drum roll, because we're obviously building tension, because he needs this paper to get around. It's got all his notes in it for his interview. And we have boom. If we notice, we have those hits on the steps. Bink, bank. See that? Boom. Boom. And if you have sound audio, another good trick you can do as well is match the transients with your hits to some extent. If you notice I did that there, because sometimes it's helpful to have a transient or the audio of the footage to line your hits up with. Sometimes it's opposed to lining up with the frames. I mean, you line up with the frames, but having the transient audio can really help sometimes. So this piece is way different than the previous one, and it's way different than the next one. This one is very orchestral in nature. It's very light. I chose orchestration-wise to have the instruments play staccato, so very short. I had the instruments across all of the range. I had brass, I had woodwinds, I had strings, and I had orchestral percussion. So the melody was in the pizzicato strings as well as the woodwind together, the clarinet one, and the flute. It's a stacked VST, so it did both together. And then I also had the woodwinds split between the lows and the highs, playing the same part stacked, and then the same thing was echoed in the brass as well, in the trombones and French horns. That was another stacked VST. So we have those sounds, and then we have the timpani rolls. And so we have this very light, whimsical thing as he's traveling across the map. And then we have him kind of in his space, and then we have the timpani roll for the transition to add drama, and then we have the last little kind of bow on top, which is the bang, bang, bang. And so that transitions us into the next scene. So obviously the transition point we had was this little video, and then we had to land out of it, which is this little portion of the last portion of this scene that leads into the next section. So having an understanding of instrumentation orchestration can really help when establishing the mood and vibe of a scene. And with the orchestration that I chose, I wanted something light and whimsical, so I had the instruments reflect that with the playing styles and the VSTs.
Your door's locked.
Oh, let me get that for you. There you go. Get the fuck out of here.
So for the last example, this is a thriller / suspense film. And this transition, a little bit about the story. There's this person who wants to be a professional hitman. And we follow him on this journey into this house. And unbeknownst to him, he ends up getting stuck in the house and getting found out by the Mark and his other friends that are there. They essentially tell him to get out, and then we think that it's the end of the story, but they pull him back inside and beat the crap out of him, and he ends up in a trunk in the desert. And some other crazy stuff happens. But for this cue, I wanted something that was really intense, and it's a pretty short little cue. It's probably about 15 seconds or so, and it's transitioning us into the trunk scene. So the next scene is a very discombobulated cue. So let's chat about the things that I used here. I ended up doing a sequencer with my MS20, this kind of bassy sound, and then this sound with the VST called Fireflies. Yeah, and those are the kind of the three main things in it. So let's kind of listen to some of these sounds by themselves, and then we'll put them in context. So the first thing is this sequence sound. It's building up. I'm actually opening up the filter, and then when he gets kicked, right here, the filter closes. So what's going on with the sound design? Listen to it here. So here's a high-pitched sound in the sound design. So the pitch is going up, and the sound design, the sequence is, the pitch is dropping. So it's essentially doing this kind of cross-point thing with the sound, and it actually ends up working really well. And I did that with this bass line as well. So the bass line, does it here? Well, right here. So yeah, in context with the sound design, here's what it sounds like. So it makes the high pitch kind of really resonate and stick out further. So the last thing is the pads to provide some kind of harmony underneath it. Essentially, this is all E minor, but we're just doing it G, an E minor with a G in the bass, a D7, and then an E minor. You can think of it as a C, a flat 6, because for an E minor it's flat 6 to 1. So now let's hear what it sounds like in context. I had to cut out some of the sound design that's going on right here because there's a frequency that's baked into it that we didn't use, but this is a rough with some score in it. So here's what it sounds like now. And then we end up in the trunk of the car. So yeah, that's a fun cue that I'll have to show another time. But if you notice it's adding tension for this scene, because before then it's really light. There's no music at all during this whole section. It's pretty much monologue and conversation. And then there's this kind of beat down section, and then there's this transition to darkness. And so it comes back in here, obviously, with another cue when the trunk opens. But I really wanted to have something that gave intensity to the scene, and creating this sequence sound with the MS20, as well as this really cool simple pads over top to provide harmony. And so I thought, that's what it needed for the scene. And by using the sound in the sound design, the high pitch that's coming in, and having the filter sweeps kind of cross each other in a path to not get in the way, and also it just opened up the sonic spectrum, and it just provided more intensity to the scene, in my opinion. And so using things like the sound design and using things that's going on visually with the story with your music, it can be really helpful.
Thank you all so much for watching the video. I hope it was helpful to you in some way. Like I said, the big takeaway is transitions are really important, and understanding instrumentation orchestration and how to apply those to different genres with transitions is essential. The goal of a transition is to create space for the character transitioning from one scene to the next. So with that said, there are previous videos over here in case you guys want to check them out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all next time.